Hi everyone, and welcome to the Enlightened Canvas. My name is Leanna Hahn, and I'm going to be your instructor today. Today we're going to do this cute little painting. Yay! I'm calling him Lucky Bunny because he's the bunny that we're kicking off this channel with, so we can use some Feng Shui Lucky Bunny luck. So I'm painting on a 8.5 by 10 canvas, and I have included a link to the stencil for this particular painting. And how this works is anytime I do a painting, I will do an outline of that stencil. And then now I have a template, so I don't have to, sweat it and recreating it from scratch. What I will do is, so like here is the stencil. When you print it out, it'll just come out in your 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And then what you'll do is you'll kind of cut it, and you'll take a blank canvas and put it behind. Now, if you have a light table, that's fantastic. If you don't, and this is what I do, I will just put it up to the to a window and with the light behind it. I'm just showing you my my flashlight on my phone, so just so you can kind of see. It will be transparent, and you will be able to see it. So, and just kind of set it how you want it. So even though I've set it for 8.5 by 10 canvas, really this bunny, you could do a lot of florals all around it and swishies and do it on a larger canvas. So totally up to you. I'm going to be using acrylic paints, and I have in front of me on my very fancy template paper plate, I have got some turquoise. I have got some Dioxazine Purple. I've got Phthalo Blue, black, and 2 dollops of white. So I always start with 2 just because we use white for everything. So you're going to be going back and forth and messing it up and da-da-da-da-da. So I also have with me today, I've got kind of a medium size filbert and a smaller medium filbert. And then I've got some kind of smaller ones. So I've got a teeny tiny one. This is going to help me with the whiskers and the eyes as well. It's just kind of helping with that. And then as always, I have a cup of water and a dab rag. So when we are working with acrylic paints and you put your paintbrush into that water, notice it's going to come out and it's going to be dripping. So you want to make sure you're always dabbing it off on your rag before you're going, in between washing it out before you go to the canvas. You don't want it to drip off. You can fix it, but we always try to avoid it. So, because once you have paint on the canvas, the water will strip it off. So it'll be this one little light streak, and you keep going it over and over, and you're like, oh, it's still one layer different. So we want to avoid that. Anyway, so this little cute guy is our motivation, and you see him up in the corner. So I'm going to set him aside, and that way you can always kind of keep an eye on our what we're trying to achieve up in the corner. Now for time savings, I went ahead and I started with just the basics. And what I do is anytime I look at a painting, I go, okay, what are the 3 tones? I target the 3 tones. What's your middle tone? What are your highlights? What are your lowlights? So I always begin with the middle tones, if appropriate. And in this particular case, we have this nice little outline in the background. It's a light blue. And in the body, I put in a medium blue. Now, if you've gone through it and you've done your stenciling, I would recommend doing it in pencil. You want to make sure that your brush strokes are going kind of with the direction of your pencil lines, because it will bleed a little bit. Now, blue and white is like thick paste, so it should cover anything. And if you don't have it covered in the first attempt, that's fine. You'll get it. We're going to be adding more layers, so you'll get it covered eventually. So no problem there. So again, to save time, I just kind of got our base coat. I've erased some of those lines that were on the template, and I'm just going to kind of watch my original. I'm going to move it here in front of me, and you've got the original up in the corner. And I'll just kind of eyeball some of that. I did not erase any of the eyes and the mouth because that was kind of important, so I left that and I kind of painted around that. So to get going, I'm going to go ahead and move into, I like working with this small filbert, and you'll notice as you turn it to the flat side, obviously it's flat, but when you turn it to its side, it's pretty thin and precise. So I like to use that for some of the outlines. just because it's one of my favorite brushes. And folks say, you know, hey, which brush do you use for what? Obviously, bigger spaces, smaller, tinier things. I don't follow an exact science. I like the ones I like, and I tend to use those, and you'll figure it out as you go along. So can't really mess up too bad. So we are going to start with, let's give ourselves a little bit of purple. So I'm going to grab some white, pick up some of that Dioxazine Purple, and I'm going to give myself just some highlights of an outline. And going through and just kind of bringing in any place where I'd like to add some purple color. So not really going very, very heavy quite at this point, just kind of putting it out there. And I tell people, don't worry too much about being so exact. You'll come back in with some additional lines, and I like to make my lines loose. And I do that with adding multiple colors on them, a lot of times white. So if your line is very wonky, we'll come in with some white highlights, and that kind of just distracts the eye, so it's not looking or expecting an exact crisp edge. The multiple lines makes it swishy. So your eye goes, oh yeah, that's good. That's good enough. I like that. So I'm going to mute my phone here. I didn't do that in advance. Ha! Got to remember that. Okay. So let's kind of come down here, and we're going to add some underline here under his little cheek. I'll do that on both sides. Now with every painting, I always decide, where is my light? So if I were going to take a flashlight and point it right here, where would that light fall and where would the shadows fall? So tend to keep your darker colors where your shadows would fall. So I'm going to go over here to the right, and then obviously underneath, this is where my shadows are. I'm just kind of adding a little bit of depth, more heavily towards this side, to the right side, and less to that side. So we'll add just a little bit here. And then remember, this is a little bunny, so he's got, his edges are going to be furry. So we don't want to make everything so precise when it comes to the edges. So I'm kind of taking my edge of my paintbrush, and I'm just going to add, I'm just kind of dabbing it and making it a little less precise. All right. And now I'm not even going to wash my paintbrush. I'm going to go right into some Phthalo Blue and add a touch of white. So kind of coming up like that. I'm going to bring that right on top. I might lose some of that purple, but it's got some nice strong undertones. So and I'm going to play around with adding some white into that. So this is really just kind of finding that it feels good moment. I'm going to bring up the other side of the ear. And this side, this is kind of showing this is the inside of the ear. And then as well, we will come up here and define the inside of the ear. And we'll bring a little bit more of that, the outline edge. And then I'm going to bring this phthalo blue down around the cheeks as well. And then bring this down on the right side. Now I added a little bit of water to this just because my bunny is getting a little dry. So I want this to go across the paints underneath it. So I do that by moistening it up. And now what I'm doing, since my paintbrush has got some white on it already, I'm going to go over to this other side, highlighting more with the white. And then you'll notice too, the direction of my strokes. I'm keeping my strokes in a curved fashion. So that way, if you're showing that the body is rounded. Now, don't worry about the exactness of the body, just because, if you recall, we've got some, you know, I won't call it foliage, but it's kind of the hint of foliage around it. So you can hide whatever, do whatever. You're not gonna, you know, your eye is not gonna dwell on that. Okay. So again, there we go. So just kind of re-emphasizing. There, that's looking kind of nice. All right, so now we're going to go in and work on the forehead part of our bunny. And I'm going to bring in a little bit more white, a very baby blue, because I'd like to highlight that. And so what I'd like to do is two things. I'd like to bring in more light to that side, being the left side. So I'm going to bring in a little bit more white on that side of the face. Now, he also has like these outer cheeks and this inner cheek. So let's go ahead and bring in that inner cheek. And it's not on your original stencil, but it's just kind of right here. Let's do the same thing on this side. There we go. And then while our paint is nice and moist, I'm going to go ahead and grab a little bit of a medium blue. And I'm going to start to show some shadowing underneath. And then we've got the same kind of shadowing underneath on the right side. And then it gets a little bit darker towards the outer part of the cheek. So again, we're moving from what would have been our original medium blue, and we're kind of now focusing on where's the highlights and where's the lowlights. So we've got a little bit of a highlight on top. And we'll come back to those inner circles after they dry a bit. And then we'll kind of re-emphasize them with some more white paint. All right, and then let's go ahead and do that on the forehead. So we'll just give it a little bit more of a highlight. Remember to keep the direction of your paintbrush strokes going with the direction of the face. So in other words, don't go left and right, so keep going up and down. Because we're kind of creating the angle of the face. Okay. I'm going to come back to now those tiny little bunny areas. And I'm adding a little bit of a darker color at the bottom. Again, the darker blue. And then coming back in with that darker outline. But keeping in mind that the top of the face is lighter, the bottom is darker. All right. And then I'm going to bring a little bit of white highlight right on top here. There we go. All right, and then we have a little nose. Don't forget our little nose. Let's go in and make our nose a little bit more pronounced now. It's kind of got a little oval top here. Okay. All right. It's feeling good. All right. So let's go in now and let's start blending some of these hard lines on the top. And I'm going to add some water to my paintbrush. And then I'm going to go in and grab some of the white. And I'm going to come in and start adding some great little lines here. Just kind of outlining where the inside of the ear is, where the outside is. And remember I said I come in with multiple lines, so that way it's kind of confusing. It's not very distinct and crisp. And that's kind of the idea. Now, if your paint has already started to dry, which it should have, you may have to reuse some of the blue. Get your area moist again so that you can blend better with your white. So I've kind of re-moistened that area. And I'm going to come in with some white. Just kind of highlighting. And don't forget, since our light is over here, let's make sure we got some nice white here. You're just kind of playing, trying to get there. That, okay, I like it, feel. I'm taking some white and I'm kind of adding a lot. When I say a lot, I'm not letting it blend in with the rest of the blue. So I'm taking it and kind of lightly throwing in the feeling of some of that bunny fur. We're going to add some pieces here. And this little guy has got some blues and some purples and some whites. And I'm being very indiscriminate. But I grabbed some blue and I'm adding some, like a hint of fur. All right. And I'm liking it. And don't forget that your darkness in acrylic, it will be easy to lose that. So you may have to come back, and where you want the depth, the inside of the ears, you'll need to redevelop that. It's just going to kind of be lost as you're blending over and over. So I'm kind of playing, adding some more of the white. Quite honestly, every time I do this painting, the ears look completely different because they're all, you know, got the general outline, but it's all quite subjective. All right, so now I'm going to grab some of that purple again, and I'm going to come in here and make it a little bit more pronounced. And again, I'm taking the very tip and just dabbing just the very, very edge of it, and I'm kind of changing the direction. Now I'm going to do the same thing with, and you know what, before we do that, let's just make sure we're happy with the colors. Once you start finalizing your edges, it's difficult to update the color on the inside. So I'm just washing off my brush to get it nice and clean. Let's see. You know what? Let's go ahead and jump into a smaller brush. I'm going to go right into the mouth. So let's go in. I'm sorry, my hand does not make a very good window. It's a better door than a window. But let's take a look at the shadowing. Make sure we're good with the depth of the shadowing underneath. So I'm grabbing some phthalo blue. It's a little bit darker. And I'm re-emphasizing the shadows underneath. And now I'm going to grab just a little bit of turquoise on that. And I'm going to do a little bit of the same thing under here. There you go. All right, now we're going to come in, and with that same very light feel, I'm just touching the edge of the little bunny, the inside cheek. And then I'm doing the same on the top, kind of emphasizing his nose. All right. I'm going to carry this same effect all the way around. on the left side of the cheek. And we'll do a little bit down here. And a little bit up there. All right. So now what I'm going to do, just to make it more easier to see our face, I will go ahead and bring in the outline for the nose and the mouth in black. Now at this point, your paints are doing pretty good, but your black could potentially be a little dried. So what you'll do is put your tiniest brush in there, and you're going to be dragging and pulling more. 99% you will need to add water to it. So black is the one color, because it's made with charcoal. It is always the first to dry. So I'm putting water in. I'm putting my tiny brush. I'm spiraling, spiraling, spiraling to get it as fluid as possible. So what I'm going to do is start with the base of the nose and go straight down. And then come down to the right, and then come down to the left. Now I'm underlining the bottom part of his little nose. And I'll go ahead right into the mouth. So there you go. You see I've already gone into the bottom part. There. So it's a little bit more visible, if you will. And then let's go ahead and then add in some more shadows underneath with that black. Now we're going to be very sparing, and my lines are going to be very wispy. So you don't want to carry it all the way to the left. You want to carry it all the way to the right, because again, this is where our shadows. There we go. All right. And then now I am going to, let's go over to this, you can do it with any size brush you feel comfortable with, but I'm going to grab some of the white and I'm going to bring that down. Again, I'm going to arc my, my strokes. Just kind of showing some movement there. I'm also going to grab some turquoise and then do the same thing. All right, that looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to work on these eyes. So the biggest thing is start small. So you've got a design here or an outline, so that will definitely help you. And what I mean by start small is you can fill it in, but maybe be conservative and not completely to the edge, so that if you need to fix the shape, it's easier fix. Because you're going to have to go over it with 2 layers of black to get it solid black. So I'm actually going to turn this towards me. And be very careful, because when you're dealing with water and these tiny little brushes, well, any brushes, there'll always be one little drop of water right at the base, and it'll hang on your brush. And as you're going very detailed here, it'll drop onto the canvas, and you'll be like, oh. So yeah, prevent. Oh! So I'm filling it in. So just looks like a big blob, and that's okay. Really doesn't look like an eye until you put that dot. And it's amazing. It's like the dot and you're like, oh, it's looking at me. So yeah, so hold tight, dot will come. So the challenge here will be to get them proportionate. That's why it's easier if you start out with them being a little bit smaller than it's supposed to be, then you can kind of add to versus subtract from. You can subtract from, you just have to let it dry. So let your black dry and then come in with some white right around the edge. And then that will generally fix whatever you got going on. So while we're letting this one layer of black dry, I'm gonna go back over to my teeny, teeny, tiny brush and I'm gonna grab just a little bit of blue. And the top part of the lip has a little bit of blue and it fades into the white. So I'm just adding just a little bit. And then I'm gonna go right in with the white. There we go. All right. And as you see, he is shaping up very nicely. While we have that tiny little brush, let's go ahead and keep with that white. And we're going to add some little touches to the nose. So he's got a little thing right here, kind of where the light's hitting it. And then a little piece right here as well. That looks pretty good. Let's add just a few strokes on that side. A few strokes on this side. And if you feel like you want to add just a little bit of white highlights to those inner cheeks, now would be the time to do so. So I'm even kind of just blending it with my finger, the tip of my finger, because I don't want to work too much on removing the strokes. There we go. Give him a little bit of highlights. A little bit of highlights in his nose too. I want to almost say maybe a little bit more up here. Okay. So he's looking good. Let's go ahead and add just a little bit more white lights to the body. And this is totally a personal preference. You want to do it, you don't have to do it. So if you're feeling like, yep, he's good. There. I like that. All right. And if there's anything you want to do with the bunny ears, now's the time to do that. So, okay, while we're waiting on our eye, or at least my eye, to dry, let's go ahead and work on the embellishments below. So we've got what I'll call our leaves or our foliage. So I'm just grabbing some turquoise, and this is really the best way to describe it is smudgies. It's nothing descript. It's a whole lot of swirls, and that is it. That is how specific it is. Now I'm grabbing some purple and going around that. And every painting is going to be different, so do not sweat it. And then lastly, I grab just a little bit of white. And if you've got some really heavy, heavy pieces of paint that you were like, oh, I went too light on, now's your time to kind of lighten it up. So that's our outline, super easy. As a matter of fact, since our eyes are still moving along, I'm going to go ahead and start with the whiskers. So they're not going to touch each other, so we should be okay. Again, using that tiny, tiny brush, working with your black, making sure you've got enough water in it so it's fluid and moves across the canvas. And make sure that we're going to be taking those strokes in an arced direction. So they want to come out and then fall down. Now, caution. With this brush, the harder you push, the thicker the line. So you want to make it a very, very light line. Now, if you find that your lines are too heavy, again, what I will always do is go over with another white line. Again, that premise that the white and the black is creating this distorted look, so your eye doesn't focus in on the crispness. So we can kind of hide a thick line with a white line on top of it. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn my canvas so I can look at it straight on doing that, so I get the right arch. So you want to start them at the outside of that inner cheek. And don't worry if they're not a solid line. That's okay too. All right, and I'm going to do exactly what I said, go right over with the white line. I just like how it looks, quite honest. If you do it right away, it's mixing in with the black, and it gives it, some of them are black and white, some of them are white, some of them are gray. So that's what my little whiskers look like. There. Okay, so now I'm going to go back in and work on the second layer of my eyes. Maybe on this layer, stay away from the watered black. We want to go in with a more solid black, just because we're trying to get that coverage. Nice. All right, so I think I've got these eyes fairly even. So what I will do now is, using that same brush and that same black, I'm going to make the eyelashes on top. So I'm going to give her some nice little eyelashes. We're only going to do it from the top of the eye outwards. There you go. She's a cute little lady bunny. And then washing off that brush, I'm going to, and dabbing it off, I'm going to grab the white. And I'm going to come around, give her a little bit of outline. So I'm outlining the eye. And here's your opportunity. If you've got a little odd shape, you can fix that with the white outline. Now, the bottom of the outline, because the eyes are very bulbous and they stick out beyond or right at the edge of the face, you only want to take the outline up till the portion where the top of the head stops. So, and then I like to just tweak in any highlights here with the purple. And now for the pièce de résistance, the little white dot. So again, I'm going to turn it towards me so I make them proportional. I'm going to look at my originals, see where I got those, put the first one on. It's literally one dot, that's it. And then I'll look at the second one, try and make it proportional, one dot. There we go. All right. And then last but not least, take a step back. Look at your little guy. Do you like him? Did you forget something? Do you want to add something, change it? Do you want to put more highlights, tweak his, his little ear? Do you want to add something to it? Totally your choice. So hopefully you have found some inspiration and found some luck. And hopefully you will enjoy this, and you can visit our website at the Enlightened Canvas. We'll have all sorts of different paintings available, as well as a release of our YouTube video where we introduce a new painting, a new way of looking at things, and lots of inspiration. So visit us at the Enlightened Canvas. Thank you so much.